Welcome to the final month of my Patreon Library TBR challenge. This is month 5, and I have read so far 28 books towards the challenge, which seems colossal to me, but keep in mind a lot of them are really short books, but they still count. My focus for this final month will be continuing to read things off of that really high priority list that I made a couple months ago, things that have been on hold for a really long time. I also am going to do a random number generator to pick a book, and per the card I drew in July's Read Reading TBR, I am going to put those 3 books that I draw via random draw up to a Patreon vote, and they get to pick which one I'm going to read. And if you missed that episode, I have a stack of TBR cards that I made, and while I was at it, I made a couple of challenge cards that kind of celebrate all of my favorite challenges that I've run on the channel. And each one has a different prompt telling me how I'm going to choose my random draw book for each month. And then I'm going to report on my progress throughout the month. At the end of the video, I'll do my typical challenge wrap-up where I rank everything that I read. And I'm still going to include the library new releases because I find a lot of cool titles that I'd like to share. So the first order of business is I need to do a random number generator so I can figure out which books are up for Patreon vote. So I have a screen recording ready to go. I have 1,827 books in my library wish list at the moment. And number 428, I need a pen. 897 and 1772. Give me like 3 hours to go through my list and I'll let you know which ones got picked. I finally have my selection, so these 3 books will be put up to Patreon vote and they will pick one for me. The first one for number 428 was The Taking by Kimberly Derting. She's responsible for the Body Finder series that I read the first book, and it's easily one of the best YA books I've ever read. It was so good. So I'm inclined to read more from this author. I really like her as a person. I met her on a panel several years ago. This is a trilogy. The premise is she wakes up after a flash of light behind a gas station and finds out 5 years have passed, but she hasn't aged a day. But some really weird stuff's going on, like her whole family has moved on. I didn't read too closely into it because I just wanted the gist of it. I didn't want the back of the book to ruin the premise for me. But this would be a fun one. The only hesitation is I've been trying not to start new series, but if I were going to start one, an author I really like and a series that sounds interesting would be a good one. The next one, 897, is actually one I have on hand. Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers. This is the Robot and Monk series. I believe there are 2 novellas out so far. If this one gets picked, I'll probably dive into both of them. I liked Wayward Children. Okay, so I am a plot reader. I really do need more of a through line. The first one was okay. I really liked the slice of life element of it and how cheerful the writing was. The second one was a complete tangent, and the third one lacked so much structure that I did not enjoy it at all. So I did not read the 4th Wayward book. I don't even know if there are more out in it. But I think the author is lovely, and I think that would lend itself to a nice little snack of a novella here. So if this one got picked, I'd be thrilled. And then finally, 1772 was Saturn Run by John Sanford and another author there, a one-name author. I put this on my list because when I read the back of the book initially, when it first came out ages and ages ago, I read the word race. And so I thought, oh cool, a competition. And looking into it more, it is kind of. So someone spots an anomaly that looks like a ship that didn't come from Earth approaching Saturn, and it then turns into a race to see who can get there first. I'm nervous about these types of books. 7 Eves kind of threw me off a little bit. Really technical science fiction where it just lost me. But then again, I've read The Martian and Project Hail Mary and really liked it. John Sanford is not known for his science fiction. He's more of a, I don't even know. I sold him for years. He has a ton of books, but like kind of in the same vein of like suspense fiction, if you will. perfect Father's Day gift books. So the co-author there is promising, but he's obviously at the point in his career where he's successful enough that he's got other people writing the books like that he conceives. So I'm hesitant on this one, but if I read it, it would be cool. It's not shelved in science fiction. This is one of the ones that was kept in fiction with his other books. So I don't know. Am I SFF snob where I think that means it's probably not as good? Maybe. But if it would help if I cared enough ever in my book selling career to look into what John Sanford was writing about. So could be good. I'm not sure. So that's another one. So patrons, vote on the one you'd like to see me read and we'll see what we end up with. It's like the 10th of the month and I've only finished one book for the project. Yeah, my reread of The Animorphs, which was a library book because I was doing the audiobook this time around. I mean, it was like 3 hours long. So this is the extent to which I've been able to make progress. I'm reading 2 other books right now that are not library books. They're for a different challenge. And so that's cramping my style a bit. And I do have 1 library book going. But see, that's the thing. I have 3 or 4 things going right now. I should not have that many things going. But I got kind of scattered. In any case, really liked this one. I have a child banging on the door to get in, even though, like, my mom patience is just totally up. I said at the end of last video how I was aware that I was going to derail myself and that I was kind of, rebelliously choosing to fail. But now I'm reaping, like, you can do anything you want, you just have to face the consequences, and that's what I'm doing now. So 10 days into the new month, I've only finished 1 really tiny book. I'm on track to finish 1 more kind of mid book. And then from there, I really don't think I'm going to have time to read much more than my challenge book. But as it happens, filming with kids is hard. Challenge votes came in, and it was a tie between The Taking by Dirting and Psalm for the Wild Built. You know, I did the math the other day, and it's a small wonder I'm tired. My life has been a slave to what my children need for 9 years now, and my youngest is 2, so I got a long ways to go. But I was like, it's amazing. It was good perspective, because I'm like, what was life like before kids? It's amazing that I can do anything these days. But like taking a few minutes to film an update, my book is broken. Anyway, I hope some of you parents can commiserate with me for today. But this is happening. Like, I'm so sick of stalling on filming stuff because my kids aren't cooperating. So it is what it is. I've had a few videos lately where even though there's another adult in the house, like, they're still screaming in the background. It's like, what can I do? I can't do anything more. Okay. Rant over. That's how my month is going. How is your month going? So I think what I was saying is the votes for my random draw options came in, and it was between The Taking by Dirting and Psalm for the Wild Built. And usually I say, when it's a tie, I will pick the option that fits my current schedule and interests the most. And I think because of that, I'm going to go with Psalm for the Wild Built. It's a quick win. It's like a 4-hour audiobook, and it's currently a 2-book series. I'm going to consume both of them so that I'm not starting and not finishing something again. The biggest factor is the Kimberly Dirting book. I would have been happy to read The Taking, but I'm in the middle of her other series, The Body Finder, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly. And so the idea of not continuing that one, but picking up something completely different just wasn't, it's like, I would do it for the challenge, but given the option, because there was a tie, this is the one we're going with. And so, like, this may be the only other thing I read for the challenge this month. It has been an especially busy summer. I've had a couple things working against me, and it's just the funniest things that add up. But first of all the kids home for summer, right? There's no break in the day. Your life is like a series of preparing food and then cleaning up after your children. But normally I would do that with audiobooks in like the tedious parts of my day, but they're talking at me so often and there's no mental break that I have to pause it every 5 seconds anyway. And then the other thing is, if I do have my audiobook in, like if I do have a moment to myself to listen to a book, then I've got this one earbud left because the other one fell in the toilet. So that's not usable. So I've got one earbud left, and I don't want to do dishes with it because I'm afraid I'm going to drop it in the water and then I'll have no earbuds. But the big over-the-head ones that I used to wear, they broke. The replacement ones that my husband let me use, they squish my head. Does anybody else have this issue where you get headaches from the headphones squishing your head? That's why I usually go with kid headphones. But then it's even worse when you have glasses, because then it pushes the metal into your skull and it really hurts. So I just walk around without audiobooks anymore. And so I think that's one of the main reasons why my reading time, at least my audiobook listening time, which used to be done casually throughout the day in like 10-minute chunks here and there while I was doing laundry or whatever, it's down to like practically nothing. Like, I do a little bit at work. There are some jobs I do at work where I can do it in tandem with what I'm doing. I don't really need my whole brain in on it, but they're few and far between. And another issue is I'm reading a couple of really heavy, dense fantasy novels right now where I need the ability to concentrate. And so that's part of the reason I have so many books going, because got into a book and was like, oh crap, I can't do audio for this one. I need to physically read it. Same thing happened with the next book that I picked up as my audiobook replacement. And so here we go down the line. So the third book I'm reading for the challenge, in fact, let me get it. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I'm about 25% of the way through this thing, and this is great. This is perfect, easy listening, can do it on my commutes, can do it in like 2-minute chunks, can listen to it while working. So this one is getting read for the challenge. But I did forget to mention I'm doing my little counting tracker, finishing this Animorph book. As pathetic as that has been so far, means I have completed 29 books for the challenge since it started. That might be one of the reasons why I'm kind of going easy on myself this month for not having read a lot, because by the end of the month, I'll have read at least 30 books for the challenge, and that's great. Done. Overambitious. And I'm really craving reading more things that are within my collection, getting away from library stuff and focusing more on the things that I actually own. So stay tuned. By the end of this video, I'll be announcing what the next challenge is going to be that my patrons have voted on. And it's all of that same type of like mindset. Like, let's focus on the books that we own and celebrate those. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning and couldn't sleep. And they say when you do that, don't lay in bed forever. Get up, do something, read a book to calm yourself down. But I laugh at that because usually reading wakes me up more, so I end up staying up later. In any case, I had this brilliant idea while I was wide awake that I'm going to do a reading vlog. And I'm going to try to knock out some of the books that I've started for the challenge and try to get myself back down to reading just one book at a time. So this is what we're doing tonight. I'm trying to find my spot in this book, and we're just gonna chill. While I was sitting here, I also came up with a really good idea. Like, I like tracking my progress on things and getting literal gold stars for completion. So I created this little design here, and all of these little dots are going to have gold stars put on them when I finish a chapter during my reading vlog. Morning. It's early. I get to work pretty early these days. I decided that today, because I am caught up on cooking and cleaning and all sorts of other things that I could be doing with my time, I'm not in a really good mindset for doing projects, that today is going to be a restful reading day. And so I'm going to do a 16-hour reading vlog. And yeah, it's 16 hours, not 24, because Like, I have children and a job, and yeah, that's not gonna work. So I'm at my office a little early, I haven't started work yet, and I'm pacing and I'm listening to an audiobook. I have 5 audiobooks in my library holds that I would like to get through. And you know, today isn't about speed reading, but it's about consistency. So last night I couldn't sleep. I made this cute little chart, stayed up and read a little bit. I got out of bed. Like, they tell you when you're trying to build consistent sleep habits that if you cannot fall asleep within 20 minutes of waking up in the middle of the night, you're supposed to get up. So I got up, but I really feel like I was awake longer than I would have been had I just continued to lie there and suffer. Anyway, I read last night and made this little chart, and I decided to make a game out of it. So today, my goal is to read a chapter at a time from each book. I want to go in a specific rotation. So I want to do Great Big Beautiful Life, Animorphs, because I have 2 books checked out in the series, and right now I'm on 28, The Experiment, and then I also have 29, The Sickness. And then I also want to do a couple of nonfiction, because I have found when I do these rotation things, I tend to get really burnt out on following plots and novels and stuff if I don't switch it up a little bit. So I checked out A Monk's Guide to Cleaning. There's more to the title than that, but I'll put the cover up on the screen. But that one looked really cute. It's like a 2-hour audiobook. And then when I inevitably finished that one, I also checked out Life in 5 Senses Life in 5 Senses by Gretchen Rubin. For some reason I think it's 4, but 5 makes more sense. Anyway, I'm gonna do those, and then I also have my project books, Psalm for the Wild Built. Those are the ones I'm going with for patron vote, and we'll see what I can get through today. I've got a buddy read for the Devils coming up, and I'm thinking that that's going to take up the rest of my month. So today is kind of my last hurrah. That starts on Monday. It's currently Friday, so I can get some good reading done between now and the end of the weekend. Maybe I can wrap things up. We are starting the day having finished 29 books, so should be good. Let me show you my little chart. I made this little chart, and it's going to be the way I'm gamifying this today. I drew a picture with little dots, and the intent is to fill up all of those dots with stars. I didn't count, I don't know how many there are, but let's see how many of this sheet I can fill up. And if I fill everything up with stars, then I'll just add some new dots. So, okay, let the reading begin. I need to talk about Great Big Beautiful Life. Of all the ones I have on rotation, I figure it's like my main book. It's the one that's an actual novel length. I'm halfway through it right now, and it is set up less like a contemporary romance like the other ones, and more like a literary fiction with a romance novel component. Like, there's a woven plot. It jumps in and out between the main narrative with the main character and the love interest, and this book / biography that the main character is working on, like digging into the story of that. So it's a story within a story. And typically I struggle with that because I'm like, I don't care. I just want to go with the main plot line, which I can see why this was picked for book club. Yeah, the structure of it. But I miss her other stuff where the entire book was about the actual love story element. And bug, there's an almond on the floor and it looks like a cockroach. So for me, this is reading very different from the usual Emily Henry, but I am still loving the main character. And I think I'm interested in it, right? Like, for a story within a story, it's better than most of the ones that I've read. However, you ever reach a point in a book where you're like, okay, this could go one of two directions. It really depends on how the author handles a specific element. So this inside story, if it somehow has bearing on the main character as we're going through her struggles, like so far I haven't seen any tie-in whatsoever. If it ends up being incredibly pivotal to the meaning of the plot at the end, it will be worth the read. I want to feel something, right? If it's totally unrelated, then the book's not going to get a very good rating for me. So we shall see. I do appreciate that this is one of the most ambitious works that I've read from the author so far. Creativity points out the wazoo, but I'm not. I want more time with the love interests. I know I said I was going to be doing all reading today, but then I realized the final episode of Murderbot season 1 came out today, and I only started watching a week ago. I thought the whole thing was out already, so I love Murderbot, at least the first 4 books. The most recent releases really didn't do much for me, but I'm hoping there'll be more in the series. But I wanted to see how they did the adaptation, because I've heard that Apple TV Plus is really good at adaptations. I'm interested in the Foundations one, but I'd like to read the books first. But anyway, what I love is that Murderbot season 1 encompasses the first novella, All Systems Red, in its entirety. And they took the time to really pay honor to everything in that novella, and they didn't cram more than 1 per season. So I'm really hoping that season 2 is the second book and that it gets an entire season as well. And I thought it was fantastic. So it had the perfect mix of that inner dialogue that makes Murderbot so fun to read about, and they captured how uncomfortable it feels all the time so well. They made it a little cringier than I got from the books, but that's okay. Like, I feel like it emphasized the point. But my favorite thing about it is, while I was reading the books, never have I ever been able to tell the humans apart, except for the main human character, right? And I always justified that as perhaps Murderbot really didn't care to distinguish between them, so it was truly an immersive experience. But the humans were actually, like, they enhanced the story, being able to tell them apart immediately in the show, and they had such personality. I especially loved Pinley. So good. It was done incredibly well. So, I mean, I'm always a proponent, like, read the books first before you watch the show, but if that's not in the cards for you, then if you watch the show, you will get a really good introduction to what it was like to read the books. So freaking funny. So, back to reading. I'm at work again. My next update should have been more of my 16-hour reading vlog, but that did not happen. It's funny, I was like, why am I struggling to be a normal booktuber? And then I realized that most of the people that I've seen doing 24-hour vlogs don't have children, and that is a huge factor. So they didn't let me read. They like to talk to me constantly all day long, and the last thing I wanted to do was have earbuds in during all of that. So I didn't have a chance to read all weekend, and yesterday was an incredibly busy day at work. And so I am, like, it's Tuesday. I tried to do my reading vlog on Friday. The thing I have been keeping up, I have been filling out my little tracker with the stars. That's been really fun and motivating. I don't have it with me. I forgot to bring it to work today. But as soon as I realized I wasn't going to be able to continue the vlog, I got a little bit discouraged. And so it becomes that creator debate, like, do I fabricate as if, you know what I mean? Like, keep reading, but do it over the course of a week, but make it look like I did it all in one day? And I'm like, that's just not my vibe. First of all, it's too much work. Like, honest people have a lot less stuff to worry about. But there is an element of creativity when it comes to making videos like this. So if I wanted to portray a 24-hour reading vlog, it would be really fun to do, but I just don't have that kind of energy. So where I'm at, I stopped rotating the books. I ended up just fixating on one, which I kind of thought would happen because Emily Henry, that's the one I did, Great Big Beautiful Life. Whenever I pick up her books, it always dominates my reading. So I just focused on that one, and I finished it. And there was a moment where I was about 75% in on the audio, where I told a friend of mine who also loves Emily Henry that I was liking the book, but the story within the story thing could be a real problem if it didn't enhance the love story or the dynamic between the two main characters in any meaningful way by the end. So my end rating on that was going to depend almost entirely on how well the side story was handled. And it could have either been a 3-star or a 5-star read. When I had only 1 hour left on the audiobook, I was already formulating my opinion in my mind, like, okay, what do I need to share about this for content? And I was certain that the side story was not adding anything to the overall plot. In fact, it was kind of taking things away. I was like, this is a total buzzkill, not what I signed up for at all. But then, in true Emily Henry fashion, she won me over completely by the end. I was so engrossed with this book. In fact, I was like kind of already given up on it a little bit. It had 1 hour left, and I was out running errands for work, so I was at the post office, and I had just pulled in when a bomb dropped in the book, and I think I was like, holy shit! Then I had to go get stuff done, so I had to listen to the rest of the book in chunks, but it landed. It truly landed. I'm still not sure on my rating. The reading process of this one, even though it ended really well for me, was much less about the love story, and that was a beautiful component of it. I really like that. And more about this ambitious, woven literary fiction plot. So I didn't get the same kick I usually get from reading an Emily Henry, but it was still a good book. So I don't even know how to compare it to the other ones. I feel like it's almost a sidestep from the other books, and it's kind of sitting on a shrine of its own new era of Emily Henry. And so I don't even know how to compare it to the other ones because it was so different. But enjoyment factor and compulsive readability, yeah, A+, super good. So I finished that. It's probably going to be a 4-star read. And the next one I'm into, The Monk's Guide to Cleaning House and Mind. This one, I do not want to learn how to clean like a monk. Like there's a reason why they have so much free time, like free from earthly attachments and whatnot. So they do have time to meticulously clean everything. That is not what I'm about. Too much going on. But I am finding it interesting to get into the mindset of a monk, the very intentional and meditative way in which they approach the world. And it's kind of a cool insight into a culture that I'm not very familiar with. By culture, I mean monk culture specifically. So that's cool. And then as it happens, it's going hand in hand with Psalm for the Wild Built, which is about a monk and a robot. I'm 30% into this one, and mention of a robot has only just now happened. So when you have such a short book, 30% is a long time for an inciting moment, but it is a Becky Chambers, and normal plot rules don't apply to her. And that one, I feel like I'm a little too antsy and not able to sit down and concentrate to really appreciate this book. It's very transportive in the sense that like you feel lighthearted while you're reading it. And I keep finding my mind wandering during it. I think it's me. I think had I picked it up not for a challenge, but out of genuine interest to get to it right then, I'd be having a different experience. But right now it's got kind of a tinge of an obligation read to it, and I definitely think it's affecting the experience. So that's the end of my 16-hour reading vlog. Hope you enjoyed it. The other books that I mentioned, haven't started them, so they're a non-factor. I probably will return them to the library. It was a really good idea to give you a little bit more of a deep dive into the perspective shift that I've had this weekend. So like I said, it really bummed me out that I wasn't able to do an earnest reading vlog. I figured I'd be able to like even with kids alternate time with books and still incorporate it into my day, but it was just impossible. But then I also watched Gavin Reads It All. He did a video documenting his content creation process over the course of an entire month. And by the way, I am loving his channel. I've just barely found it within the last month or so, and he's a total delight to watch. But this one I found incredibly helpful because this is his full-time job. He works sometimes 10-hour days on content creation, and that's part of the reason why the videos are so good. And all of these challenges that he's doing, he's able to do them within a week. And I'm like struggling to get challenges done within a month. And so I had just like an aha moment that I have a full-time job. I have a side hustle job. This content creation is a third side hustle that takes most of my free time. And I have 3 children. Like, what the hell? It's amazing to me that I'm able to get anything done. So my expectations that I'm just gonna be able to drop everything and do a reading blog is like, so I'm accepting that if I want sleep, I'm not going to be able to pour everything into the content creation that I want to. I'm loving what I'm doing so far, but I keep trying to add in these extra things like a reading blog. I'm like, that would be so cool. Anyway, I realized this video would have been much more satisfying had I delivered on the promise that I made that I was gonna do a reading blog. But at least by the end of it, I will have finished 3 more books for the challenge and done so in a little bit more quickly than I would have otherwise, because I did hit it pretty hard that morning and like 5 hours of reading, but whatever. Let's talk about some new acquisitions that my library has made lately that I've put on my wish list. I'm gonna do an editing experiment today, so if I keep myself in the center of the frame, I should be able to put in book covers on the side where it kind of like squishes me over. We're gonna see how that goes, because it would sure save me a lot of time, but I'm not sure I like the way it looks. So I don't think I've added as many to my library wish list as I usually do per month. There were a lot of summer cutesy romance books on the lineup, and I added a couple, but really right now they're not buying a lot of sci-fi fantasy or, you know, hardcore productivity organization nonfiction. But they did get the new Isles of Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson, which confuses me a bit because I watched Sanderson's weekly update and I thought he mentioned that this one wouldn't be available for the masses for a while, because I still haven't gotten my copy in the mail, nor have I gotten my digital access to like the audiobooks or whatever. But this is an audiobook. It's on hold at the library. Good thing I'm not super eager to get to it anytime soon, mostly because I want to finish the other 2 secret projects from him that I haven't read yet. But of everything he's come out with, this one is a novel-length story from the Sixth of Dusk world. Sixth of Dusk is a short story, tropical setting, birds. Like, it was so cool. I love that one so much. Just the world building packed in that tiny little package. And this is a whole book on that one. So I'm very excited to get to it eventually, but I'm treating the secret projects like a series, and I would like to read them in publication order-ish. Next up, my library picked up Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. I've had Spell Shop on hold for a really long time. I would like to read that one eventually. Seeing the next one already available kind of lights a fire under me, so hopefully I'll get around to that one eventually. I think it's romantasy, but I love this author from just her basic fantasy stuff. I think she's great. She's so creative, so I'm looking forward to that series. There's one called Unstressable by Mo Gaudat, and that seems perfect. I've seen a couple of stress-related nonfiction lately, and I would like to know more about the science behind it, because there are some studies that show that certain levels of stress is actually healthy, but it's all in how you interpret it and how much you let in. So this seems like, yeah, definitely want to read more on it. Inheritance of Magic by Benedict Jacka. Is that right? For some reason, I was associating this with Stephen Arion. I am indeed confusing this with Stephen Arion's The Judas Blossom. Very similar cover vibes. I might get to it eventually. The Depths of Venlath by Brady Huntsaker. First of all, love the cover. This is advertised as progressive fantasy with Scandinavian folklore and like D&D vibes. Cool. I'll check that out eventually. I have not actually read any progressive fantasy. I feel like the leveling up nature of it would appeal to my sense of like achievement, completionism. I don't know. There's got to be some sort of dopamine hit that I'm going to get from that, but I haven't tried any yet. I am looking forward to it. With a cover like that, that one might be a fun one to start with. Although I do have the Will White Cradle series, and I also have Dungeon Crawler Carl, which, is that progressive? I know it's RPG. I think it's also progressive. Anyway, cool stuff happening in the fantasy world now. There's one called It's Never Too Late to Begin Again by Julia Cameron. Resparking Creativity and Meaning. I think this is the same lady who wrote The Artist's Way, which I haven't read. But I liked this one because anytime someone can like reignite their passion for creativity, I think it's really inspiring. I'm not lagging in creativity, but I always get inspired when I read stuff like this. So I'm not quite at a midlife crisis yet, but I think it would be fun to read this book anyway. Speaking of, I didn't even write the author down. This one's called Grumpy Mom Takes a Holiday. Yeah, I really think the acquisitions team at the library are profiling me and be like, what would she read? What would interest her? Grumpy Mom's book. That sounded like a kick. Unplugged. Despite my many praises of Cal Newport's digital minimalism, whenever I read that book, I get like a good month of living the kind of lifestyle without digital stimulation that I want to. And then I slip back into old habits really quickly. So I'm going to continue reading these books until something more permanent sticks. It's like every time I read a book like this, I get like 5% closer to my goals of not relying on my digital devices all day long. So I'm slowly headed in the right direction. So anytime I can read a book on the subject, it reinforces that in me. And then the only romance one that I wrote down is one called How Freaking Romantic by Emily Harding. I thought the cover looked cute and it was like little cheeky vibes or whatever. So I don't read romance books often. Emily Henry kind of has me on this good kick where I seem to pick up one a quarter. And then I'm looking into the Abby Jimenez. I will probably continue to pick up stuff in that vein, but probably only on recommend from the masses. So the people who read tons and tons of them, like the good ones, do sometimes tend to make their way to the top. And so I'll just let everybody else vet those for me. And I've got plenty of books to read in the meantime. But for a library hold that there's no cost to me to add that to my wish list, there it is. Maybe it'll get picked for random draw eventually. And that's it. You know, I'm really enjoying this feature within this library challenge of being able to talk about new books that have come onto my radar and some random things that I'm interested in, because none of those things are probably going to get read anytime soon. But it's just cool to talk about the new stuff that's out. And I don't really have another good feature for that on my channel anywhere. So glad we got to do it for a couple months at least. I'm having a full-on reading crisis. And it all started to go downhill when I tried to do that 16-hour reading vlog. Since that was like 2 weeks ago, and I've just been in a slump ever since. I have only finished 2 books, and I may have already talked about one that I finished, but I read some Animorphs books. Number 28, The Experiment, and number 29, The Sickness. Like, this is all I've had the bandwidth for, like 3-hour audiobooks. So my paper is never around when I'm filming, but I think this is 31 and 32 completed library reads for the challenge. While I was finishing that, I went through and just took everything off hold, unchecked out everything that I had checked out. I was just too overwhelmed. There were so many things I had going at once. Psalm of the Wild Built was actually an okay read, but I found myself restarting the same chapter over and over and over again because I just couldn't concentrate on it. And so I wasted like 4 hours trying to follow this one little passage. I'm like, you know, this is a sign that I need to put it down and try again, because I'm obviously reading it out of a sense of obligation rather than because I'm really interested in the story. And it was good. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, at least a 3 stars as it sits. But this has been one of the most eye-opening challenges that I've done in regards to my own habits. And so I did some like deep journaling about this, because this is how far we're gone where I need to get out my mental health journal. I wrote down all of the reasons why reading was stressing me out, all of the different components, and it's everything from a time restriction on library holds to watching too much booktube and getting that sense of like FOMO of all the things I haven't started reading yet. And I've come to the conclusion that at least a third of the reason why I'm struggling so hard to feel content with my reading is that the time pressures that the library puts on me is just amping up that sense of urgency that I feel to get through things quickly. So I made myself some rules. I'm like, okay, here's the problem. How can I fix it? And let me show you what I've come up with. Rule number 1, no more checking out reads from the library that aren't on the top shelf of my priority bookcase. Random reads can be good here and there. They're really good to break up the monotony of everything that you're doing and add a spice of variety. However, I went through the last like 80 or 90 books that I've read over the course of the last year, and 45% of my reading has not come from those top priority books. They've come from random things that I've checked out at the library on a complete whim. Probably so impulsively that I wasn't even finished with whatever I was currently reading, and then I add myself another problem of trying to read too many things at once. 45%! That's almost half of my reading being like, ooh, shiny. And that would also explain why I feel like I'm not getting through my high priority stuff fast enough. Yeah, it's because it's taking me twice as long as it normally would have. Rule number 2. The only holds at the library should be the immediate next set of books I'm planning to read on that top shelf. So to kind of fix this, I went through and deleted every hold that I had that wasn't for something that was super high priority. And to be clear, the high priority stuff that I have is like 3 different series and that's it. Like that, the library holds list should be supporting what I want to do with my reading instead of detracting from. And it's definitely been detracting from. I really can't believe, like over the last 80 books that I've read, like 35 of them have been just random checkouts. It's nuts. Because I have discovered that my in-the-moment self is not very good at sticking to my value system or like figuring out what I should be reading. It just goes by whatever looks the most compelling in that moment, which is fine, by the way. I'm not saying there shouldn't be some room for experimentation and that maybe in this last season of life, I've really needed those popcorn reads and those things that are easy to get through without a lot of stress. But I'm getting tired of it, so that's why I'm making a change. I'm sure I'll go back to it eventually, but for right now, I need some structure. Rule number 3, buy more audiobooks. And I don't mean like willy-nilly shopping the sales, bringing home what you think you might need. No. I mean, if there's a book that I'm planning to read next in a series that is longer than like 15 hours, instead of trying to play the timing game with the library, I'll just pick it up, I'll spend a credit on it, and I'll have it available to read at my leisure without having to rush. Simultaneously, if the wait for something is more than like a month out, instead of delaying me wanting to pick up a book immediately because I'm so excited about it, I'm just going to spend the money on a credit and read it immediately. So that is putting me in a place of a lack of monetary efficiency for a place of increasing my time efficiency. And right now I am valuing time a little bit more than money. So ergo, I'm going to buy more audiobooks in the future. Have to read them right away though. Rule number 4, read one book at a time, even if it's challenging. Even if it doesn't lend itself to easy listening time, like on my commute, while doing chores, while in the backyard, while at work, whatever. It is okay if it takes longer because it requires more concentration. That's the thing that's been killing me lately. I get this really detailed, awesome fantasy novel, and it takes so much concentration that I'm like, well, I can't possibly listen to that or read it while I'm out doing all these things, but I have to have something going at all times. And that's the thought process that I'm challenging, because I'm a content creator and I have this pressure on myself to just be constantly reading something, or else I feel like I'm, quote, wasting time. And that's not the slow living vibes that I'm going for these days. So my intent is to par it back, read one book at a time, even if it's challenging, even if I only get through 10 pages a day. And I'm practicing sitting with the anxiety that creates that I'm not moving fast enough. In fact, I kind of have an unspoken rule, like an unwritten one, that if I feel that anxiety that I'm not getting to the books fast enough, I am not allowed to pick up a book during those moments. I want to be drawn to books because I'm drawn to the story and want to see what happens next, not because I'm feeling anxious that I'm not getting through things fast enough. So, retraining my entire body-mind system for this. And I have my woes with the library challenge to thank for that. Rule number 5, write a review in its entirety and post it before picking up my next book. Back before I was a booktuber, and maybe even a little bit before I was on the Goodreads community, I would finish a book and then I would have a lag time between finishing it and when I would pick up the next one, and that's when I would write the review. Sometimes it would take a couple days or even up to a week, but that didn't bother me at all. Now my reading is so pre-planned out and my schedule is so packed that I already had planned what I was going to read next over the course of the next year. So I want to slow down again and give time and breath. And I'm like, the only reason why I feel like I don't have time to write reviews is because I'm not creating the time. So that's my plan. I'm actually not allowed to pick up another book until I have closed the loop on the last one that I read in its entirety. I usually plan out my reading to avoid the anxiety of looking at a plethora of books and not knowing which one to pick up next. But I'm kind of like, I didn't like that anxiety, but I hate what I'm doing now even more. So I think it would benefit me to have to sit there and agonize over which of the many good choices I'm going to pick up next, because ultimately I'll end up going with something that I genuinely am excited to read in that moment. So right now, when I have things planned out so far where I like have high priority things one after the other, it's like a contrived excited to read the next thing, because I'm not truly excited in that moment. I was when I made the list and I know it's a good one, but yeah, I'm not letting this is where my mood reading is going to come into play a bit more. And finally, because I know myself, rule number 6, if a nonfiction gets compelling enough to pick up, it must wait for its own moment as I am reading one book at a time. That's how all of these other reads start to creep in. Like I get a complicated fantasy, but I'm like, but there's this cool nonfiction book on productivity that I could just listen to here and there and just kind of fill in the dead space, and then I end up reading those almost exclusively. So to support myself in my new habits, no more of that. When I go to pick my next read after I've written a review, like I have to choose between nonfiction and fiction in that moment, and we'll see how it goes. This is going to be a fun experiment because I'm wondering if I implement all these rules, if reading will actually feel slower. Well, it's definitely going to be slower, but if it'll feel better, right? Like if I'm more immersed with the one thing that I'm reading. And actually, one of the things that inspired all of these new rules for myself, I was already agonizing on it, and then Daniel Green posted a video about how to enjoy reading again. And one of my favorite points that he made in there was the fact that when we were younger, we used to pick up a book and just spend every spare moment with that book. Like, you couldn't casually read a book on the go. So you would spend your days and fill your mind with just like one story at a time and really let it sit with you. And it didn't matter how fast you got through the books. And that nostalgic feeling, that feeling of just enjoying one thing and not having an agenda, not stressing about other books that I have to read, that's what I'm chasing. And I was remembering back that far when I felt that way, when I would just sit with a single series from start to finish. And it's not actually as far back as my childhood. I was doing this back in like let's say 2010. And around that time, I had over 4,000 books in my collection. I'm probably down to about 2,000 right now. So I have definitely pared it down. So I should have been feeling more anxious back then about all the things that I hadn't been reading, and less now because I have fewer things on my shelves and I'm more focused. But that's not the case. And the difference might be the sheer abundance of things and how often new books are coming out that are so exciting and in your face. Because, like, let's face it, 20 years ago, there were probably only 5 or 6 really good fantasy books being published every year, or at least the ones you found out about. Like, I had a bit of an advantage because I found a few of the more obscure things in the bookstore, and there's probably more than 5 or 6, but like must-reads, cream of the crop. But now it's, oh man, the entertainment industry is just exploded and there's so much abundance. And I think that overwhelm, and I think the accessibility of being able to check out multiple books at a time and be able to take them on the go with a digital device has just absolutely destroyed that sense of one-on-one, it's me and a book, and it gets as much attention as I allow it throughout the day. So I like my new rules. I think they're going to help. All of this was generated from my frustration with the library challenge. So needless to say, like, I'm glad this is the last month, and I will be really excited to see how I do going forward with this newfound philosophy on using the library less. That was like an episode of Shelf Help, only without like a specific book that I'd be talking about. Anyway, I have 2 library holds out right now. I had one checked out and was halfway through it before I made my new rules of only doing one at a time. So one of them I checked out. The body keeps the score. Evidently, this doctor is a leading expert on the origins of trauma and how to treat it. This is like the Bible of understanding trauma and how it plays out in the body. The guy that wrote it made a lot of the initial discoveries in the field, is incredibly smart. I just finished a chapter where he was talking about Vietnam veterans and the PTSD that they were bringing back in, and like obviously failing to acclimate back into their old lives. So it's a good one. I'm reading this one more as a mental health thing because it was recommended by my therapist, but I am sticking to the one book at a time thing. So right now as a buddy read, I've been reading using a library audio copy, The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. So I've put a pause on that other book and I'm focusing solely on this one until it's complete. And like, this is the funny thing, all of this anxiety about reading. I am reading Joe Abercrombie books, so I know the anxiousness that I'm feeling is not because I'm not enjoying the book. And so I'm like, if I still feel anxious while I'm reading a Joe Abercrombie, the problem's me. It's absolutely me. So that's kind of, it helped me with a lot of the insights or whatever. So I'm probably going to only have time to read those two books before the end of the month. It's already like the 22nd, and I will do a final check-in to let you know how they went. And then probably from there, we'll do the like entire lineup of all the books that I read from the challenge and like rank them. This is the first book out in a new series by him. And to me, this is reading like Joe Abercrombie is having more fun than he's ever had before. Like, this is just him indulging himself on the page. That sounds gross. And I am finding it wildly entertaining. You can kind of tell from the cover, this is one of those like motley crew, hodgepodge, all forced together with a common purpose type of stories. And this happens to be one of the best ones that I've ever read of that variety. I'm about 25% of the way through. And I would say, like, this is hardcore Abercrombie. It's both bloody and hysterical. And I think it actually would be an okay place to start if you've never read any of his First Law stuff. Just know that it's like amped up. So if you read this and then you try to go read The Blade itself, you're going to read The Blade itself and be like, where's the plot? But on the other hand, reading this, you know what kind of stuff his work shapes up into, and I think you'll be able to appreciate the nuances of his other works because you'll see the nuances. Yeah, so far, absolute scream. I'm intrigued. I have a bunch of unanswered questions, and I know he's gonna string me along for a while, but I'm really looking forward to see what's going on in this world and with these characters. Really strong POVs. So when you're in a perspective, like with like one of the monsters or people, whatever, it's so good. Can't give this one enough praise. Thanks for hanging in there with me with this odd video. We're just gonna keep plugging along. All right, my friends, we have made it to the end of the challenge and I am ready to move on. Some challenges I can't wait to end. This one, like, I am ready to focus on books that I actually own. And it's been fun experimenting with the library. I'm sure eventually I will start missing that, but for now, it's nice to make a change. So I have finished 33 books for this challenge over the course of 5 months, and we're gonna do our typical challenge wrap-up where I rank them, and we'll see if overall my reading experience has been a good one. 33. That's pretty good. Okay, in no particular order, and I'm just going to tell you off the bat, I'm not going to rank the Animorphs books. I don't even know, like it's a 5-star series for me. Some books in here are like 2 to 3 star books because they're not that good of hits. So let's just say I love Animorphs, but I don't think it'd add any value if I ranked every individual one that I read for the challenge. Similarly, Spirit Animals. If I ranked each individual book, I think they would show up differently on the scale. So for sake of, let's just say this entire series is a 3-star, right in the middle, and that'll actually be a good way to set things up because we'll see basically everything above that is going to be good books that I read. Everything below that is just kind of meh. Sunrise on the Reaping. I did not like this one as much as I thought I would, but I still overall enjoyed the act of reading it. It was nice, nostalgic, got to spend some more time with characters that I haven't seen in a while. So 3.5 out of 5 stars. Funny Story by Emily Henry. I like this one a lot more than I thought I would. It's Not as good as my favorites from her, but it's far from my least favorite. So 4-star read, upper half. Okay, I have placeholders here. The Truth About Animals by Lucy Cook. This was a delightful surprise. I enjoyed the heck out of it. There's still something in there like that involved animal torture that, I mean, it was for scientific purposes, but I don't care. It was really hard to read and it still stuck with me. Like, I can't think too hard on it. It was the bat chapter. But, so that kind of made left me with an icky feeling. But overall, the story, the little anecdotes in here, I learned a lot more about animals than I knew, which is cool because I consider myself kind of animal crazy. I like learning new facts, so it was really good for that. I would say overall 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think I would have rather, if I could only pick between this and Sunrise on the Reaping, I would have much rather continued the Hunger Games series, so that's why it's getting ranked just a little bit lower than that, but still good. How to Keep House While Drowning by Casey Davis. This one came out of nowhere. I heard her on a podcast speaking. I thought she was very eloquent. I really liked the inclusiveness of her system, and I found her entirely relatable. So this one was a huge surprise for me. Probably one of my favorite things I discovered because of the challenge, because I was more inclined to pick up random library books because I was running the challenge. I don't know if I would have gotten to it otherwise, so 5-star. Top book right now. Live Suit by James S.A. Corey. While reading it, I was like, this is cool. It's like adding more to the universe. I think it's neat. It's been since like February since I read it. To put in perspective, because I know my recordings are off, that's like 5 months ago. I can't tell you anything that happened in this book. I don't remember a single thing. So let's just put it as a generic 3-star. I loved Mercy of the Gods, but this one yeah, whatever. But I do like the series more than my general experience with spirit animals, so a little bit higher than that. Okay, next up, Tranquility by Tuesday by Laura Vanderkam. Like, productivity and time management people love referencing this woman because she has so many books on the subject, and her ideas are really good, but I've read 2 books from her by now, and I am just kind of lukewarm on both of them. So great ideas, but I don't know that we needed entire books to discuss them all. But so this one was kind of in my lower half. I'd say good tips, but compared to the ones that I've read that I've liked more, it's probably only like a 2-star. So we have our first low ranking one. Dollmakers by Lynn Buchanan. Loved the crap out of this book. I thought it was so good. And like, I just can't get over how cool I think this edition is. It's basically people who have honed their craft to create these dolls that fight monsters. And I love reading about people really good at some special skill. And I thought the pacing on this one was great. This comes with full illustrations and they're gorgeous. And key for me, momentum. Somewhere around the midway point, it picked up and it did not let go until the very end. So one of my favorite books of the year so far. And I think I love How to Keep House While Drowning, but I had such a moment with this book that's getting my top spot. So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. Maybe had I not extensively listened to podcasts from this author and kind of knew all of the things that he had discussed in this book, I maybe would have liked it more. But because like I didn't really get a lot of things new. All it did was kind of expand on what I already knew from listening to him. Ultimately, as with most self-help books, this one was more creating a space for you to percolate on how you can improve your own situation. And that was where the value was, more so than what was actually within the content of the book. It also read to me a bit elitist. 2-star. I liked it less than Tranquility by Tuesday. Adrift in Currents Clean and Clear by Sheenan McGuire. Another Wayward Children book that was so good. I loved this one. And this one had less serious overtones than some of the ones in the past. Like, some of them are just gut-wrenching. This one was a perfect balance between real-world issues and just a bit of fun. The turtles are where it's at. So I love this one. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Currently 3rd. Shadow of a Giant by Orson Scott Card. I liked this one more than I feel like I had any right to. Like, I read the description, I'm like, it's the final book in a series that I'm reading, or at least the arc of the series that I'm reading, so I must get into it, but it just doesn't sound like something I'd be interested in. It was really good. Like, probably a 4-star read. Probably not my least favorite of the 4-star reads that I've read, but still a really good conclusion to a story. State. Demon's Bluff by Kim Harrison. Book 17 or 18 in the Hollow series. I always lose track. This one was really cool. I liked it a lot. There are some things that happen in here that I've been waiting to see happen for like 10 years. So, but you know, maybe not as good a momentum as some of the other books that I've read from her. So I think I came away from this at about a 4-star, but it could bump up to 4.5 based on nostalgia factor. And so I think, yeah, that seems about right. More Animorph books. Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. I liked the process of reading this one and the mindset that it put me in. I also, of all the books that I've read on the subject, found this person most relatable. It seems like he's been through a lot of the same mental blocks that I have, whereas it seems like, especially with Cal Newport, he talks about digital minimalism from this place of someone who isn't sucked into their phone constantly. So this is from someone drowning, trying to get out, and I appreciate how many people he talked to in the field. Overall, I don't remember much of what I read. It's not one of those books that'll stick with me, and it's not one that I think I'll reread, so let's give it a 3-star. Probably upper half of the books that I didn't like, but it was still okay. Definitely Dead by Charlaine Harris, book 5 in the Stooky Stackhouse series. Stooky Stackhouse. Nope, it's book 6. I'm loving the series. I especially liked this one. There's stuff in here that was not in the show, at least as far as I made it. I think I watched until season 4 or 5. But I really enjoyed this one. It continues to be a series I'm super excited to dive more into. And I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, like pretty high actually. And like, even though I love this one, it's pretty even with the Wayward Children book. So we'll just call that 6s there. Okay, only a couple more. We've got What in the World by Leanne Morgan. I love spending time with this woman. I listened to this one while I had like a really high fever, and she allowed me to escape my misery for a while. And yeah, just really enjoyed her life. It actually gave me a couple of things that I could extract about my own life. 4 out of 5 star, maybe, but one that I'll remember for a while, so maybe it deserves higher. But let's say right in there. Secrets of Adulthood by Gretchen Rubin. It was only an hour, but I still feel like I wasted my time with it. So 1 star at the bottom. I think I rated it more highly when I first covered it, but the more distance I've gotten, I was like, did nothing for me whatsoever. And last but not least, Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wong. Loved this book so much. It's funny, I've had some discussions with my patrons since, because we read it together, and they pointed out, and they're not wrong, that this was very similar to R.F. Kuang's Babel. And I had a ton of issues with that book. And it was actually a lot of things I was complaining about in that book make an appearance in this book. But for whatever reason, it drove me crazy in that one. I hated that book. Really loved how it was done here. What's the difference? I am not so sure. But this hit for me on every single note. I love the momentum, like it careened towards the end. It left me breathless. There was a certain thing where she tied everything she had done up to that point together, and it made it so like the cherry on top of intentionality. Like this book was written with a vision and a purpose. And I love the academic aspect to it. And the characters, like everything worked for me. This is also like a solid 5-star read, I think. But you read a book with people and they don't like it as much as you do. And you're like, is there something wrong with me? Should I be more picky about this one? But I just take it for what it is. I loved it. Is it better than Doll Makers? That's a hard one for me because I love them both. I think for right now, Doll Makers probably has the #1 spot still. So there you have it. And actually, if we're looking at it, 3 stars, this is our baseline. I have a lot more books in the upper half than I do the lower. And these were from authors who I've read before that I thought like it was going to be good books, with the exception of Stolen Focus. So I think those were good gambles to take. But the general quality of the stuff that I read for this challenge this time around has gotten better. So yeah, that's pretty good. It's after the fact. I've already finished recording this video, and I realized after reviewing my list that I left off Rejection Proof. It was one of the first books I read for the challenge. Let's put that like right here, just a little better than a 3-star read, but nowhere near as good as the rest of the ones that I liked. Okay. Oh shoot. I also forgot The Devils because I didn't put it on the pile because the pile was really high and I didn't want this expensive signed book balancing on top, so I set it aside. I forgot The Devils. I just finished this book. I really enjoyed it. I'm afraid it's going to scare off a lot of people who haven't read Joe Abercrombie before, or it'll scare off the people who have read Joe Abercrombie but don't love the humor quite as much as I do. And it was totally indulgent, overindulgent if you will, and I was there for it. I think his timing is impeccable. I think it enhanced the characters, and overall I enjoyed the adventure with these people, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does next. There were some really good character moments in here where you just felt this like depth of duality with these people, especially with the werewolf. I'll leave it at that. So this was a 4.5, well, maybe just a solid 4, but upper half. And I think I liked it. Let's put it here. I probably didn't have as good of a time with it as the Sookie Stackhouse books, but I did like it better than the Harrison one. So, now's the final lineup. Good grief, get organized, lady. I would call this challenge overall a success, and even more importantly, I got a whole bunch of books that had been on my TBR library wish list for the longest time. I just kept suspending the holds. I have read all of them except for one, so 9 out of 10 completion on there. And the one I never did get around to was Disquiet Gods by Rocky O. It will get read. Now is just apparently not the time. But before we close things out, I want to take a minute to announce that my patrons have voted and a challenge has been selected for the last few months of the year. We are going to be doing the Only Owned Book Challenge, which is in direct contrast to the Library TBR challenge, and I could not be more excited. I will probably be doing an introduction video to tell you a little bit more about the rules. There's going to be themes for every month, but suffice it to say, I'm looking forward to it. During the Library challenge, it became more and more evident that I am buying at such a extraordinarily unbalanced rate that even if I continue getting rid of books as aggressively as I have in Read, Burn, Hoard, I'm going to run out of space. So I need to either read the books more quickly, or like focus on them more, stop buying as much, or be willing to part ways with even more books. I think I'm probably going to do a combination of all 3 of those things. But I'm very excited to be focusing on, from September 2025 until December, only owned books. We'll see what kind of dent I can make in my collection. Thanks so much for joining me for this challenge. If you participated as well, I would love to hear your final numbers, how you did, what's your wrap up, and what your favorite book you read for the challenge was. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye.